The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was a structure of grandeur and imperfection, an embodiment of the many races it housed. The towering columns, made of living stone from the crystalline world of Velar, shimmered as if alive, reflecting the luminous glow of the central pulsing orb that bathed the chamber in light. It was here, in the heart of the galaxy, that decisions were made. Decisions that could ripple across light years and change the course of countless civilizations. Ambassador Elena Rourke stood silently at the podium, her posture straight, her face unreadable. Behind her, the galaxy's most powerful leaders watched closely, some with curiosity, others with barely veiled disdain. The Varkari, reptilian traders whose economy thrived on exploitation, the Elenar, a race of telepaths who considered themselves the arbiters of cosmic morality, and the Drovedi, a militaristic species that thrived on conquest. Each of them had already come to their conclusion. The humans were beneath them. They'd always known it. Councillor Vaughn, a towering figure from the insectoid Xyrar, was the first to speak. His voice, a guttural hum that vibrated in the air, echoed throughout the chamber. Humanity, he said, his 6 compound eyes narrowing, has long been a thorn in the side of galactic peace. Their nature is erratic, driven by emotions and base instincts. You are not fit to join the galactic concord. We, the enlightened species, cannot allow such recklessness among us. A murmur of agreement rippled through the council members, some nodding, others exchanging furtive glances. Rourke remained still, her eyes fixed on Vaughn. She had been preparing for this moment for months, knowing that the decision was inevitable, but that didn't mean it stung any less. The weight of their judgment was heavier than any weapon. She had known it would be coming for years, but to hear it spoken aloud was different. To hear it pronounced in the very room where the fate of the galaxy was decided, that was something else. Councillor Vaughn is correct, said Senator Merla, a slim, silvery-skinned being from the high-tech Serenoan system, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. Humans lack the unification required to live in harmony with other galactic species. Your constant wars, your squabbles over resources, your instability, it is a danger to the peace we have so carefully cultivated. There was a ripple of agreement. The humans were a threat, an anomaly, not a part of the greater galactic harmony. Rourke's fingers tightened around the edge of the podium as the words continued to pour over her, each sentence designed to break her, to diminish the very essence of her species. She could feel the eyes of the chamber trained on her, some curious, others judgmental, waiting for her to react, waiting for her to be the emotional human they expected. But she didn't. She stood tall, her voice calm and steady, with the gravity of a woman who had seen everything the galaxy could throw at her and had survived. She spoke, her words deliberate and cold. I hear your judgment, but I must inform you all of something important. You are wrong. You have always been wrong. A flicker of surprise passed through the room. It was rare, almost unheard of, for a representative to speak so boldly, especially in the face of such condemnation. We will not be your lesser, she continued, her voice cutting through the tension like a sharpened blade. You may have decided this for now, but you'll come to regret it. That is a promise. She turned and left the podium with a single deliberate step, her back straight, her steps echoing in the silence of the chamber. As she exited, the broadcast flared to life, transmitting her words across the galaxy. The council stared after her. In the silence that followed, there was an unspoken question that hung in the air. What had they just set in motion? The announcement rippled through the galaxy like a shockwave. The council's decree was broadcast across thousands of star systems, displayed on every screen, broadcast to every ship, every station. Humanity had been branded lesser, a species too primitive to join the galactic fold. In every corner of the galaxy, species who had once feigned interest in the Terran delegation now turned away. The words echoed in the ears of the citizens of the known galaxy. Humanity is a threat to galactic peace. But on Earth, the reaction was strikingly different. There was no outcry from the United Terran Assembly. No massive protests in the streets. No speeches demanding justice. Instead, there was a strange, almost eerie calm. Within hours of the announcement, all human embassies across the galaxy quietly closed their doors. Diplomatic channels went silent. No more transmissions. No more petitions. The Terran networks, once buzzing with activity, fell into a lull. In the capital city of New Haven, the human seat of power, President Lily Morgan sat behind her desk, reading the communique from the Galactic Council. The words were sharp, dismissive, and insulting, yet she was unsurprised. The human race had known this day might come, ever since the first tense encounter with alien species years ago. "We expected this," she murmured to herself, her voice a low, steady murmur in the vast office. Her aide, Commander Jace Terrell, stood nearby, arms crossed. A former naval officer, Jace was as hard and pragmatic as they came. His brow was furrowed, but there was no panic in his eyes. He had been trained for moments like these. "What's the next step, ma'am?" he asked, his voice steady, yet laced with an undercurrent of urgency. The Council's verdict could have shattered many, but to those who knew humanity's history, it was simply another obstacle. Lily sat back in her chair, her hands folded. "We withdraw. We close our borders. We end all communication with the galaxy. No war, no retaliation. Yet, the Council has underestimated us. Jace. They don't understand the quiet strength of humanity." The decision was made. The next day, the entire Terran fleet was recalled, leaving the outer colonies to fend for themselves. Ships once part of the United Terran Alliance now navigated without the guidance of the Council, their paths cutting through uncharted space as they turned their backs on galactic politics. No more missions, no more deals, just silence. As the fleets retreated, human colonies across the stars watched from their stations as they slowly powered down their communication arrays. Hyperlanes closed. Trade routes locked. Ships that once ran regular routes between Earth and the galactic core were rerouted, their paths becoming more erratic, more self-contained. For a moment, the galaxy believed that humanity had bowed its head. The silence was taken as submission. The greater galactic powers, confident in their own superiority, continued their operations, assuming the humans would fade away quietly. The Council felt they had won. But in the quiet of their withdrawal, the humans were not idle. In the shadows of space, behind the dimming lights of their communication relays, a new plan was forming. One that the galaxy, so certain of its superiority, could never have predicted. For the humans knew that the universe did not forgive weakness, but it did reward patience. In the wake of humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy settled into an uneasy peace. The Galactic Council, flush with its victory over the human threat, returned to its usual business of maintaining the fragile order it had crafted over millennia. But something strange began to happen in the following months. Humanity began to vanish. At first, it was small things, unnoticed by the greater galactic community. A minor colony in the Lyra system went silent, its communications dropping off the radar without explanation. Scout ships sent to investigate reported nothing. No signs of destruction, no signs of battle, just an empty system. It was dismissed as a fluke, perhaps a malfunction with the colony systems. Then, another system went dark, and another. By the sixth system, the Council took notice. Vassar 6, a human terraforming colony on the fringe of the Sagittarius Reach, was the first to send out a distress signal. The message was brief and cryptic. "We are safe. Proceed with caution. Do not come." When a survey ship from the Althor Dominion was dispatched to investigate, it found the entire human colony abandoned. The landscape, once brimming with bioengineering projects and new settlements, was eerily pristine. No signs of struggle. No chaos. It was as if the colony had simply ceased to exist, save for the warning message. The Council, however, was not overly concerned. Some assumed it was a human mistake, a miscommunication, or a system failure. Nothing more than a hiccup in the grand design. But then, more systems vanished, systems that humans had recently inhabited. Thaler Station, a key trade hub in the Andromeda Belt, had its outer colonies removed from the star maps overnight. Surveillance reports claimed that the station's last known coordinates were entirely untraceable. After several failed attempts to make contact, a rescue team was sent to investigate. They found nothing. No debris, no wreckage, just silence in the vacuum of space. The Council began to panic. Ambassador Elena Rourke, once thought to have simply faded into the background, had become a distant memory. No more messages from her, no more threats. She and her people had simply disappeared. Yet something gnawed at the edges of the galaxy's mind. This wasn't just retreat. There was something deeper, something hidden in humanity's silence. At the far reaches of the galactic fringe, on the edge of human space, the Vrakari, a ruthless, pirate-like species, decided to investigate. One of their ships, a hulking, heavily armed vessel, came across a derelict human freighter, drifting in the dark void near the Orion Nebula. The freighter was devoid of life, its crew long gone. Yet, on its hull, a strange symbol was emblazoned, the shape of a human fist, clenched in defiance. The Vrakari boarding party descended upon the ship, eager for treasure. But as soon as they stepped foot inside, things went wrong. Very wrong. The moment they entered, an automated message began to play, its cold, clipped tone sending a shiver down the spines of the pirates. This ship is under the protection of humanity. Any who attempt to seize this vessel will be eliminated. Leave now. This is your final warning. The Vrakari laughed, dismissing it as an empty threat, until the first drone activated. A swarm of sleek, humanoid machines, previously dormant, sprang to life. Before the Vrakari could even draw their weapons, they were overwhelmed. The last transmission from the ship was a simple warning. You were warned. Leave this space. You do not want to challenge us. The Vrakari fleet, once confident they'd hit a jackpot, had been utterly decimated. The remnants of their ships limped back to their base, reporting only fear of what the humans were capable of. The Council, still reeling from the mounting disappearances and the growing rumors of the human defense fleets, called an emergency meeting. The galaxy was starting to realize the truth. Humanity had not surrendered. They had simply retreated, withdrawn into the shadows, and what they were building in secret could be more dangerous than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The galaxy had begun to whisper. Humanity was no longer silent. The Council's decision to declare them lesser had set off a series of strange, unsettling events. Though the human colonies were cut off from the galactic network, they weren't fading away. They were reorganizing, retreating into the shadows of space, preparing for something the galaxy had never expected. It started with a Vrakari slaver fleet, one of the most ruthless groups in the galaxy, that thought it had come across an easy target. The Calyx, a human cargo hauler, had been traveling alone through the Betelgeuse corridor, a trade route that passed through an isolated and sparsely populated sector of space. The Vrakari had been stalking it for days, waiting for the right moment to strike. When the attack came, it was swift and brutal, as expected. The Vrakari warships moved in, cloaked and ready, their weapons primed to disable the human ship and enslave its crew. The cargo hauler, small and unassuming, was no match for the powerful Vrakari dreadnoughts. At least, that's what the slavers thought. Then, in the space of a heartbeat, everything changed. Just as the slavers opened fire, the Calyx erupted with a pulse of light so bright, it temporarily blinded the Vrakari fleet. An electromagnetic shockwave, unseen and undetectable before, swept across the region, scrambling the control systems of the slaver ships. Their advanced weapons systems failed. Navigation controls flickered and died. In an instant, the entire Vrakari fleet was disabled. But it wasn't just an EMP that had crippled them. From the shadows of nearby asteroids, 50 human warships, sleek, black-hulled vessels that looked nothing like anything the galaxy had seen before, emerged, their weapons ready, silent as ghosts. The ships were fast, far faster than anything the Council had developed, moving in perfect synchronization, like a school of predators in the dark. The Valkyrie didn't stand a chance. The human warships, using precision tactics and weapons that were silent and surgical, neutralized the slaver fleet with chilling efficiency. Their strikes were methodical, disabling shields, cutting through hulls with minimal damage, and incapacitating engines. The battle was over in mere minutes. The slaver ships lay disabled, drifting in space, their crews helpless, as human ships loomed above them. No shots were fired, no explosions, not a single human life lost. As the Valkyrie scrambled to re-establish control over their disabled fleet, a single transmission broke the silence. "Your tactics are outdated. Adapt, or we will." The message, delivered in a calm and precise voice, was a warning, a statement of power. The Valkyrie's reputation as the most feared pirates in the galaxy had just been shattered by a fleet of unmarked human warships they couldn't even identify. The Council was stunned. For the first time in years, they had underestimated the humans. What had they just witnessed? The humans hadn't just fought back. They had annihilated a superior force with technology and tactics that no one could explain. Even the most seasoned military strategists in the galaxy were left scrambling to understand the significance of the attack. The Valkyrie were quick to report the incident, but their story was too fantastical to believe. A fleet of human warships, appearing from nowhere, using technology far beyond anything they had ever encountered. It didn't make sense. But the message was clear. The humans were no longer to be underestimated. For the first time, the galaxy realized the danger of humanity's retreat. They had not withdrawn, they had prepared. And now, the Council had to ask itself, what else was hidden in the depths of human space? In the wake of the Calyx incident, the galaxy began to shift. The Galactic Council, once so sure of their superiority, was now facing an entirely new kind of threat. For the first time, they saw humanity not as a fledgling species, but as a dark horse, one with abilities and knowledge that defied all previous calculations. The Valkyrie slaver fleet, which had once been a terror in the Outer Rim, now floated as a shattered reminder of just how easily humanity could strike. The Council was rattled. No species had ever displayed such precision, such unexpected prowess. The question that echoed in every chamber, in every star system, was how had humanity hidden this from us for so long? The LNR, who had long considered themselves the moral stewards of the galaxy, convened an emergency session. Their telepathic abilities allowed them to communicate quickly, but this time, even their minds were not aligned. A single thought rippled through their collective consciousness, the question hanging heavy in the air. Had humanity always been capable of this? Ambassador Elena Rourke had never given a clear answer to the Council's doubts. But now, the galaxy was forced to confront the uncomfortable truth. Humanity had long concealed their true strength. Every diplomatic meeting, every negotiation, had it been a game. A carefully crafted ruse to lull the galaxy into complacency. The Axirar insectoids were the first to make a move. Fearing that humanity was now a growing threat, they began to mobilize their fleets, gathering resources and preparing to challenge the growing human presence in the outer colonies. Yet even as they did so, they knew they were not ready. The Valkyrie had been annihilated without a single human casualty. How could they possibly match that kind of power? Back on Earth, President Lily Morgan received updates on the galaxy's reaction. The initial victory was satisfying, but it was just the beginning. The retreat had never been about hiding. It had been about preparation. In those dark, isolated sectors of human space, the construction of the human fleet was far more advanced than anyone could have imagined. The humans had always been known for their adaptability. They didn't rely on the traditional weapons of the galaxy. They evolved their tactics with each conflict, their strategy always shifting, always unpredictable. They had taken the lessons of war and woven them into something unseen, a new form of defense that balanced precision, technology, and psychological warfare. Lily stood at the center of the command center, a sleek, glass and metal structure that overlooked the shimmering ocean of Earth below. Her fingers ran over the holoscreen, which displayed the growing human fleet. Thousands of ships, built from the scraps of old warships and reconstructed into formidable new vessels. They were sleek, elegant, and silent, designed for both stealth and attack. The galaxy had not yet seen what humanity was capable of. "We've built more than just ships, Jace," she said quietly to her trusted advisor, Commander Tyrell. "What we've created is a strategy, a legacy of survival. It's time to make them understand." Jace, ever the pragmatist, nodded, his gaze hard. "What's our next move, Mom?" Lily turned toward him, her eyes steely. "We stop playing their game. We don't wait for them to come to us. We take the initiative. It's time the galaxy saw humanity for what we truly are." Meanwhile, deep within the shadow of the Andromeda Fringe, in an area of space previously thought uninhabitable, a massive signal blinked to life. The human fleet, hidden, far away from the prying eyes of the Council, was ready to move. It wasn't just a fleet. It was the beginning of something far greater. What the galaxy hadn't realized was that humanity was building something far beyond just military strength. They were building an empire, one forged in silence and strategy, with an unwavering resolve that no other species could predict. And soon, the galaxy would awaken to the fact that humanity, though declared lesser, was far from it. They were ready to take their place among the stars, on their own terms. The galaxy had long been accustomed to peace, a peace that was fragile, built on delicate negotiations and careful alliances. But now, that peace was on the verge of unraveling. Humanity, long believed to be a lesser species, had been hiding in plain sight, and now they were ready to reshape the balance of power. The first sign came in the form of a bold, public message that broke through the galaxy's communication channels, a simple, unambiguous transmission that echoed across every star system. "This is Earth. We are returning to the table, on our terms." The message wasn't just a declaration, it was a statement. A statement that humanity, once dismissed as primitive and erratic, had learned to play the game on their own terms. No longer would they accept the judgment of the Galactic Council. No longer would they allow their fate to be decided by others. The galaxy had made a fatal mistake in underestimating them. And now, the reckoning was coming. The Council's response was swift, but the tone was uncertain. They had expected humanity to cower in fear, to cede to their so-called superior races. Instead, they were met with an audacity they had not anticipated. The humans have remained quiet for far too long, and now they were asserting themselves with military might, intellect, and strategy. In the Nebula Cluster, a peaceful trade route frequented by the LNR Androvati, a human ship, one of the newly revealed warships, appeared without warning. It moved with terrifying speed and precision, cutting through the nebula as if it were nothing more than a fog. The Drovati ships, heavily armed and aggressive, immediately moved to intercept, confident in their superiority. But as they approached, a shocking sight greeted them. The human warship opened fire, not with typical weaponry, but with energy beams that tore through their shields as though they were tissue paper. Within minutes, the entire Drovati fleet was disabled, not destroyed, but rendered completely incapacitated, their ships floating aimlessly in the nebula, powerless. No human lives were lost in the attack. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer a target to be bullied or ignored. The galaxy's response was immediate, a mixture of fear, awe, and confusion. The Varkari were the first to panic, contacting the Galactic Council in a frenzy. They had long believed themselves to be the most dangerous species in the galaxy, but the humans' power was something entirely different. They could not predict it, could not understand it, and they could no longer dismiss it. Behind closed doors, the Council convened in secret. Ambassador Rourke was now a name that haunted them. They had thought her words were empty threats. But now, the humans had proven they were not only capable of living up to those threats, they were actively changing the rules of the game. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Lily Morgan watched as the news spread across the globe. For weeks, the humans had been preparing for this moment, mobilizing their ships, gathering their forces, and aligning their strategy with one unified goal: to take their rightful place among the stars. The galaxy had written them off, dismissed them as a nuisance, and now humanity would show them just how wrong they had been. "What's the next move, Mum?" Commander Jace Tyrell asked as he stood by her side in the command center, watching the unfolding chaos on the screens. Lily's expression was calm, her gaze fixed on the growing crisis across the galaxy. "We don't stop now. We move forward. This is just the beginning. We've been patient long enough." Her fingers hovered over the holographic interface as she gave the order, setting the human fleet on a course that would make their intentions clear to the galaxy. They would not ask for permission. They would take what they had been denied for so long. Humanity was no longer the weak link. They were the future. The message humanity had sent was impossible to ignore. The galaxy was no longer a place where the powerful could dictate terms without challenge. The Drovati incident was only the beginning, a spark that set off a firestorm. The galaxy, once unified under the influence of the Galactic Council, was beginning to splinter. The Council's grip on power was slipping. In the wake of the Nebula Cluster confrontation, several smaller factions and independent systems had started to reconsider their loyalty to the Council. The coral, an insectoid species known for their trade prowess, publicly declared their support for humanity, citing the Council's increasing rigidity and arrogance. This was followed by a series of neutral worlds, many of them previously marginalized in the Galactic Order, who saw humanity's actions as a sign of something new, something that offered them a future where they were no longer sidelined by the Council's bureaucratic machine. That Hierarch, the Council's most ardent military supporters, were less thrilled. Their insectoid minds hummed with disquiet as they saw their own supremacy threatened. They had long prided themselves on their military might, yet the humans had dismantled the Drovati fleet with ease. No one had done that before. The Hierarch, fearing what humanity's newfound power might mean for their empire, began to assemble their forces in the shadows, preparing for a war they could no longer avoid. On Earth, President Lily Morgan stood before the largest fleet ever assembled under human command. 1,000 ships, from sleek warships to towering defensive behemoths, all crafted in the void of space over the past few years, were now ready to strike. The humans had not just built a fleet. They had built a message. Lily's gaze shifted from the view of the fleet to the holographic projection of the Galactic Council. The faces of the council members were drawn with concern, their eyes flickering with a mix of fear and calculated deliberation. "We cannot let this continue." The Eleanor High Ambassador spoke first, their telepathic mind transmitting waves of anxiety. "If we allow humanity to move unchecked, they will destabilize the entire sector." Vasir, the veteran strategist of the Garanth, an ancient species known for their wisdom, spoke next. "Humanity's tactics are unlike anything we've seen before. They will not be contained by threats or sanctions. If we do not act decisively, we risk a galactic-wide conflict." Lily's lips curled into a subtle smile. She had expected this response. The Council's fear was only the first step. They would react, just as humanity had anticipated. But the humans were ready. "We don't need to threaten," Lily replied coolly, her voice amplified to the Council. "We are the threat now, and you've all underestimated us." Her words were met with an uncomfortable silence as the council members exchanged nervous glances. They knew that confronting humanity head-on would be catastrophic, yet no one could see a way to stop the momentum humanity had built. The new human fleet was not just about firepower. It was about strategy, resilience, and the will to act when others hesitated. On the outskirts of council space, Hierarch warships began to patrol, their ominous presence a stark reminder that they, too, would not stand idly by. The old guard was coming together to fight this rising force, the humans, but they had miscalculated the human resolve. They had misjudged the human capacity for unity and their unyielding desire to forge their own path. As the galactic tensions rose, humanity watched with an air of calculated calm. Jace Tyrell, now a prominent military strategist, surveyed the holographic map of galactic sectors. "This is our moment," he said, turning toward Lily. "We've proven our strength. We now need to shape the future." Lily nodded, her fingers tracing the outline of the map. "The future is ours to define, and it begins now." As the human fleet prepared to embark on its next move, alliances began to shift across the galaxy. The Coral and other fringe systems had already sided with humanity, eager to escape the stifling control of the Council. Yet the Council, far from defeated, began to take their own steps toward consolidating power, but they were divided. The Tyrar's allegiance was in question. The Elenar's neutrality was wavering. The galaxy was on the brink of a new war, one in which the lines between ally and enemy were no longer clear. Humanity was no longer the underdog. The galaxy now had to decide: adapt to humanity's rise, or risk being left behind. The turning point had come, and it would be a fight for the future of the stars. The galaxy was on the verge of collapse. Old alliances were fracturing. Former enemies were now uncertain whether to fight or ally. The Galactic Council was paralyzed, torn between factions that either feared or resented humanity's rise. Meanwhile, humanity stood at the precipice of something larger than anything they had ever dreamed. They had been underestimated, dismissed, and now they were on the brink of reshaping the entire galaxy. It all came down to a single decision. President Lily Morgan stood before the gathering of human leaders in the heart of the command center on Earth, overlooking a holographic map of the galaxy. The human fleet was now fully mobilized, an unthinkable force that stretched from the outer colonies to Earth's doorstep. The fleets of the Coral, Drovedi, and several other systems that had joined their cause now circled humanity's flagship, the Sovereign, a massive ship that dwarfed anything the galaxy had seen before. "Tomorrow," Lily began, her voice steady, "we make our move. This is the moment when we show the galaxy who we are. We are not a species to be ignored, not any longer." Her words echoed through the chamber, and the gathered leaders nodded, their faces resolute. Humanity had always been adaptable, yes, but this was more than mere survival. This was ascension. The Council, however, was not ready to simply accept humanity's new place. At that moment, a special transmission came through, a plea, a final negotiation attempt from the Galactic Council itself. Ambassador Vassar, the strategist of the Garath, appeared on the holographic screen, his face drawn with the weight of the situation. "You cannot continue this path, President Morgan," Vassar said. "A galaxy-wide war will destroy us all. This will not end in your victory. It will end in a bloody stalemate, with billions of lives lost." Lily's gaze softened, but her resolve was unshakable. The galaxy has already lost. It just hasn't realized it yet. The status quo was never sustainable. The Council's time is over. It is our time now. There was no anger in her voice, just the cold certainty of someone who had been patient for too long. Humanity had been rejected, declared lesser, written off as insignificant. But humanity had built something far greater than anyone could understand, a legacy not of brute strength, but of strategic brilliance, unity, and invention. The Axirar, despite their threats, had seen what humanity was capable of. Their warships were now stationed, not on the defensive, but waiting to see who would make the first move. The Elenar, once the moral guardians of the galaxy, had grown conflicted. Their once unshakable neutrality was now in question. Would they support the Council, or would they side with humanity and the rising tide of change? All across the galaxy, communications channels buzzed with rumors of a new galactic order. There were whispers of humanity forging new alliances, creating trade routes, and developing technologies that no one had seen before, technologies that were still a mystery to the rest of the galaxy. Humanity had not just entered the stage. They had reshaped the stage itself. As the sun set over Earth, the human fleet moved into position. President Morgan stood on the balcony of the command center, gazing out at the stars. She thought back to the early days when humanity had been nothing more than a small, isolated species, just trying to survive. They had been declared lesser, discarded by those who believed themselves superior. But now, they were the future. The galaxy will remember this moment, Lily whispered to herself, and they'll remember who we are. With the final orders given, the human fleet surged into the galaxy, moving towards the Galactic Council's capital. It was not an invasion. It was a statement. Humanity was no longer asking for a seat at the table. They were taking it. The first salvo was fired, not by weapons, but by a series of encrypted broadcasts sent directly to every corner of the galaxy. The message was short, but it carried the weight of centuries of struggle and survival. We are humanity. We do not bow. We rise. The Council had failed to see the strength that had always been hidden beneath humanity's surface. Now, humanity would show the galaxy that their place was not at the bottom, but at the top, not as lesser beings, but as the harbingers of the future. The age of humanity's ascension had begun.